You've felt it before. That quiet ache suggesting there's more to life than what you see. It arrives in subtle moments, during a sunset in an unexpected act of kindness, or when you sense how fragile everything is. That feeling isn't loneliness or boredom. It's your divine spark reminding you that you're not merely a body moving through time, but consciousness expressing itself through a temporary form. And the moment you sense that truth, reality begins to shift. For centuries, artists, poets, and mystics tried to describe this spark. Homer, Dante, Rumi, they weren't inventing something new. They were pointing to what already lives inside you. Their words were mirrors, not instructions. Yet over time, humanity began to believe that only priests, scholars, or the chosen few could access the divine. We built temples and hierarchies, forgetting that the true temple was never made of stone. It was made of awareness. The spark never disappeared. It was simply buried under noise, fear, and the constant pressure to survive. When Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you, he wasn't elevating an elite. He was dismantling the hierarchy. He was saying, you don't need intermediaries, rituals, or perfection to touch the divine. You only need to remember. The spark isn't earned through obedience or discovered through effort. It awakens through awareness. Once you even glimpse it, the world starts to glow differently. Colors deepen. Time softens. Life begins speaking in a language beyond words. At first, this awakening can feel unsettling. The spark shows you how much of your life was shaped by expectations that were never truly yours. You see how much energy went into chasing things that never fed your soul. And once you see that, you can't go back. Awareness changes you, not by making you cynical, but by making you free. As the spark grows brighter, you begin to notice how asleep the world is. It's like waking up in a room full of people who are still drunk. You don't judge them. You remember being there yourself. You see how people rush, compete, and consume, trying to fill a void that doesn't actually exist. Rumi called it a prison for drunks. Jesus spoke of people intoxicated without wine. Both were pointing to the same truth: humanity mistaking distraction for meaning. The world rewards this intoxication. Endless information, status, possessions, and validation keep people numbed and busy. But once your spark ignites, the noise becomes heavy. You crave silence instead of stimulation, presence instead of performance. You begin to see that much of what is celebrated is glitter covering emptiness. And this realization doesn't make you superior. It makes you tender. You develop compassion for the sleep you once lived inside. With new perception, everything gains depth. The same streets, the same routines, but now you notice the stories in people's eyes, the way nature seems to breathe with you, how time bends in moments of presence. The spark acts like a light in a dark room. The shadows lose their power because you finally see them clearly. They were never the enemy, only the absence of awareness. This awakening carries a quiet rebellion, not anger, but truth refusing to stay confined. The divine spark doesn't obey rules born from fear. It was meant to create, to question, to expand. That's why awakened people naturally challenge systems that demand silence and conformity. Jesus did the same when he exposed how religious authorities hid knowledge to maintain control. His message was dangerous then, and it still is. The divine needs no gatekeepers. This rebellion isn't destructive, it's illuminating. The spark doesn't burn to dominate, but to reveal. It teaches that obedience without understanding is another form of sleep. As you live from this awareness, false gods like power, status, and wealth lose their shine. You no longer worship them because you've touched something real, something untouchable. An old parable speaks of a great feast where the busy and wealthy made excuses not to attend. They were too distracted to taste what mattered. The spark doesn't live in success or accumulation. It lives in the present moment, waiting to be noticed. And to notice it, you must slow down. You must unplug long enough to remember what fullness feels like. When you do, love begins to flow naturally. You give not to be virtuous, but because sharing light feels inevitable. Others stop being competitors and start appearing as reflections. Spiritual life and ordinary life merge. Kindness, creation, honesty, all become sacred expressions of the same energy moving through you. Remembering your spark doesn't mean escaping the world. It means seeing through it. You'll still face challenges, but you won't be trapped by illusion. You learn to sense what aligns with your soul and what doesn't. People may misunderstand your peace or call your authenticity rebellion, but the spark doesn't need validation. Like a star behind clouds, it shines because that's its nature. And this is where everything quietly comes together. Not in an explosion, not in a revelation shouted from the outside, but in a recognition that settles deeply into your bones. Once that spark is remembered, life doesn't suddenly become perfect. It becomes real. You still wake up, still face challenges, still move through the same world. But something fundamental has shifted. You're no longer living on the surface of things. You're present inside them. You begin to notice how often life has been rushing past you while you were somewhere else, in worry, in comparison, in expectation. And now, presence feels different. Time stretches, moments deepen. Even ordinary experiences carry a quiet intensity, as if they're speaking directly to you. You realize that meaning was never hidden in grand achievements or distant goals. It was always unfolding in the now, waiting for your attention. This remembrance doesn't pull you away from the world. It roots you more deeply in it. You still work, create, love, and struggle, but you do it with awareness. You see through the noise without rejecting life itself. You recognize how often the world tries to pull you back into urgency, distraction, and fear, and yet those forces no longer control you the same way. You can feel what aligns, and you can sense what is hollow. That discernment becomes a quiet kind of freedom. You stop chasing meaning and start embodying it. You stop searching for validation and begin acting from authenticity. Not because you're trying to be different, but because pretending no longer makes sense. There's a simplicity that emerges, a grounded clarity. You listen more. You react less. You feel connected, not because everything feels good, but because everything feels honest. And something else happens too. You begin to recognize that same spark in others, in their eyes, in their silence, in their confusion, even in their pain. You understand that everyone is carrying something sacred, whether they know it or not. Judgment softens. Compassion becomes natural. Not forced, not moral, just inevitable. Life stops feeling like a test you're trying to pass and starts feeling like a collaboration you're participating in. Each challenge becomes an invitation to stay awake. Each moment becomes a chance to respond consciously rather than unconsciously. You're no longer waiting for life to begin because you can feel it happening. Breath by breath, choice by choice. Nothing external has to change for this to be true. The world remains complex, imperfect, and unfinished, but your relationship with it is transformed. You're no longer just moving through reality. You're meeting it, engaging with it, co-creating it through awareness. And once that recognition settles in, once you remember what you are beneath all the noise, there's no going back. Not because you've escaped the world, but because you finally see it clearly. And when you live from that place, reality doesn't just look different. It is different.